I've made 48 Johnson Su bioreactors. The first one's based on the design online from David Johnson with the tall cylinder. But climbing ladders and throwing in buckets and pulling out very difficult poles I found too hard. So I have made about 84 compost heaps using pallets, so decided to go with that design. Initially I used 6 pipes for air inlet, but they were too many. Changing down to 4 made it easier for access, and pushing the front 2 to the side made it even easier again. Once there was sufficient material in the heap, you could stand the pipes up, press them into place, and they were fine. 90mm pipes placed about 290mm from the edge gives you full air coverage for the whole of the compost. Use a short piece of 90mm pipe, measure the 290mm in, draw around it, and then use a jigsaw to cut the holes out. I use bricks to support the pallets. The old hardwood pallets would last a while longer than the pine, but the pine in contact with the ground will rot fairly quickly. So bricks at the corner edges I put on a diagonal. This supports not only the main base but also the sides as you place them in position. Use a spirit level to check the level of the pallet. If it's not quite right, readjust the bricks, adding extra or taking some away. Doesn't have to be perfect, so long as it's reasonably level. Make sure that each of the corner bricks are at 45 degrees and sufficiently far out to support the side pallets when they're placed in position. I use recycled carpet rather than plastic to line my bioreactors. It's free, you can usually get it from your local carpet supplier, and it will eventually wear out in time, but you can replace it easily enough. When making a bioreactor, you're still making compost and you need the mixture of greens and browns. Fresh greens from the garden are great. One of my favourite sources of browns is deep litter from the chook shed. It's got some nitrogen in it, of course, from the chooks, but it is basically a brown. If you haven't got chooks and you haven't got deep litter, just ordinary hardwood wood shavings from your local furniture manufacturer would do it. They will be quite dry, so you'll need to add a fair bit of water and give it a bit of a soak before you add it to the bioreactor. If you have access to it, horse manure is an excellent addition to any compost. If you have a chipper, you can run larger green items through there to break them up small enough to decompose more quickly. Lawn clippings are an excellent source of greens, and you can run the mower over weeds to break them up to make them decompose more quickly too. All dry ingredients need to be well moistened. This is the design used by David Johnson, but I found I had a big bath. It worked a lot better than using the small wheelbarrow. When filling the bioreactor, I found it much easier to leave the front totally open and fill towards the back, adding fronts on as you fill the thing up. Much easier than having it right high at the top at the very beginning. Once you've filled to the back, add half a pallet at the front, tie it on with a bit of baling twine using a nurse's knot, which is just a simple knot with a double twist in it. Tie it with a bow, then you can always take it apart easily. Add more carpet at the front, and I should have mentioned earlier that I also put the carpet around the sides of the bioreactor with excess over the edges to flip over later, as you'll see. Keep checking the level of the pipes as you fill, and then once it gets full enough, put on your last piece of pallet to take it up to the top. Keep filling right to the top, and then 24 hours later you can remove the pipes, and the holes from the bottom to the top to allow the air to flow through will stay in place. If you've got the browns and greens and water level right, you should see some steam rising from the holes. You now need a watering system for the bioreactor. Because we're on a low pressure gravity fed system, we use drippers rather than sprays. They're very easy to control and very efficient. 2 wooden stakes tied in the middle make a support for the dripper pipe. I mark the edges of the pallet using baling twine, so when I attach the dripper, it doesn't exceed the size of the pallet. You'll need quite a few short pieces of baling twine to tie the dripper pipe to the 2 stakes. This can be a tricky process. You need to tie the dripper pipe to the stakes as you go round. Take the roll of the dripper pipe round the circle with you as you tie it on. It's not crucial how close together the spirals of the pipe are. Just do it so it doesn't kink. Once you've completed the spiral, cut the dripper pipe with a pair of scissors and insert a T intersection so you can add a 13mm water supply pipe at this point. Add a stop valve so when the bioreactor isn't being used or it's being refilled, the water can be turned off. Once it's connected to your water supply, put the dripper pipe construction on top of the pallets, balancing it at the 4 corners. Fold the carpets over the top to protect the pile from excess heat or excess moisture. I give the pile between 10 and 20 minutes of dripping a day depending on the weather and the temperature. After a few days, the temperature should reach the hot zone. After it cools down, add some worms. I build the bioreactors in a line with about 300 mils or 400 mils between them so I have access to get through. They're all connected to the same watering system so they can all be watered each day, and if one is turned off because it needs to be emptied, that can be done individually. I mark the construction date on each bioreactor. And this is generally what you end up with. Results will of course vary. This one, made just under a year ago, included things that had gone through the chipper, and they don't completely decompose, so you end up with a chippy sort of compost. This one, made a month later, had nothing that had gone through a chipper. Everything that went into it was small pieces that decomposed quite readily. You can also see that the volume left is about a quarter of the original cubic metre, whereas the previous one was more like a half of the cubic metre. So you get less, but the quality is there. It's beautiful stuff. I recommend that you keep notes on all that goes into and comes out of your compost heaps, be they bioreactors or otherwise. It will help you learn and will improve your compost over time.